Whether you're a for-profit or a non-profit, in governments, big, small, doesn't matter really. Ultimately, we're trying to analyze from data ways of doing things better. In the commercial world and even the non-profit world, this results in competitive advantage and doing better with what you provide as a service or what you're trying to do for your customers and your business. What does this mean if we just abstract it up to more of a business analogy? It's really looking at things like customer segmentation, how I better spend my marketing dollars and optimize my marketing campaigns, how I look at financial modeling and financial forecasting, how I look at advertising, how I target my ads, where I might focus on real-time bidding, but really understanding how to leverage all of these things to do, again, better at what you do from a core competence and a core service. All of these are business intelligence. You use them for many different reasons, but ultimately that's what we're aiming to get out of this type of infrastructure, the analysis of big data, and then the tools that Jaspersoft provides in terms of actually presenting that to you in some meaningful fashion. So there are 4 steps, one could argue, just to summarize it in very simple building blocks as to what people have to do. Something is going to generate this data. Again, that will be a service that you build or devices that you deploy or ways in which you potentially purchase this data and or provide it from different sources. There is this programmatic or an automated way that you need to collect the data and then store it. You then need to analyze it. Once you've done those 3 things, then you act on it, right? And it's those actions that you take on that data that become crucial to your business and to what you're trying to ultimately do. So what we see as we look out is that the cost of data generation is dropping. And without knowing each of you, or I heard earlier, your different focuses in terms of your business, how you generate it is different, but hopefully what you're seeing is that the cost of generation is dropping and the acquisition of this data becomes easier. Why is it dropping? Well, number one, there are many more services and or users and or devices that are allowing you to generate data. And these applications are ubiquitous. Anyone with a mobile device now or a tablet or anyone with a new washing machine or dryer is going to have some way of generating data that you can ultimately analyze. This articulation to cheaper sensors and better connectivity is very valid, right? So everything that we now own can be in some way, shape, or form be connected to the internet. You can have an addressable IP address, it's got a MAC address, you can get data from it and you can report that data out. There are cheaper sensors being pretty much put into everything, from cars to fridges, and I'm very serious about the washing machine thing, but it allows you to gather and store this data and then ultimately retrieve it for further analysis. Everything is global, everything is social. I think washing machines are, could be, and everything is mobile. But all of these things are confluences that ultimately allow us to capture, analyze, track, and observe lots of interactions with lots of different things, be they human or machine. This is a little tidbit to the fact that even microchips are being IP enabled and connected directly to infrastructure that is monitoring. So this is microchips that developed a cloud-based platform so that chips will actually report back their data, and that's called telemetry, in real time for further data analytics. But these embedded systems that pretty much now go into everything that we own that is electronically powered have the ability to generate data. So this funnels into the whole big data pipeline. So generating it is really quite easy. What you then do with it becomes the challenge. So while the cost and the ability to generate this data is progressing very rapidly, what we've seen historically, at least over the last 30 years, is that the ability to collect and store it. And collection means either real time as you look forward, but then also historical data, right? A lot of what we do when it comes to things like healthcare is looking at historical data and matching it with it, and hopefully trying to predict future trends. So the ability to store and collect, the ability to analyze, and the ability to collaborate and act upon that data has been constrained typically by the infrastructure that we own and what we can actually, what we need to do to compute and to analyze and to visualize that data. So there's a gap emerging. And this gap that's emerging is best seen in this chart, which is showing you two things. In the blue line, which is following a sort of an exponential curve up, is the data generated. All of those devices, everything they talked about. You'll see that there are sort of three discrete breakpoints in this graph: the 1990s, the 2000s, and then 2010 to 2020. And what you'll see if you put on this bandwidth connectivity in the home, mobile device deployment, the lowering cost of bandwidth, the connectivity from a global perspective, you'll see that the ability to generate data is enormous. But what has remained constant is this red line. And that red line is really showing the ability for you to actually derive and do analytics on that data. It's pretty much remained constant, and this gap of data to analytics poses the next challenge. Because in this gap could be all of your business intelligence and this competitive advantage that you're looking to act on. So this is all highly constrained. And what we're trying to do collectively through the services that Amazon Web Services are offering and the tools and the innovation that Jaspersoft is doing is to try and eliminate these constraints so that you can act quicker, analyze faster, and make decisions and make better decisions. So closing the gap. So number one, in terms of closing the gap, comes the need to collect and store this data better. And actually, this was an interesting segue. So before we get there, interesting time to just tell you what AWS does, right? So you all raise your hands and you're aware of what we do. But as a quick summary, for those of you who have not seen what we've added recently, we provide infrastructure as a service. We do this in terms of offering global regions around the world, where we offer computing, we offer storage, we offer networking. What I think becomes more interesting, though, is this middle layer, where we offer application services that help you start to glue these things together. Multiple APIs that allow you to program and access this infrastructure. The ability to do things like EMR and Hadoop analysis, which I'll get into, CloudFront for CDNs, and then higher level above, we have lots of different ways of securing and restricting access and designing virtual private clouds so that you can really extend your data center. This is what we provide. It's very diverse and it can be very specialized. We do this, like I said, on a global basis. We offer 9 global regions today. Where this is important, and here we are in San Francisco talking about BI, but you might be part of a company today that has a global footprint, or at least a national. You might move in the near future to someone that is global. And what we see is that the biggest populations are not in North America, right? They're in Asia, and growing in South America. And the ability to place your data capture and your analysis closer to where you might need to provide real-time decisions based on what you're doing becomes important. What you can do through cloud and through AWS, though, is have access to infrastructure and these services from your laptop in San Francisco all the way across the world. Spin up this infrastructure, install Jaspersoft, run Jaspersoft, do your analytics, and then potentially if you want to shut everything down, you have access to this globally. So to give you an idea of what we're building in terms of the cloud, and someone made an initial point about Gartner is that they really report on something that's going to be mainstream. And cloud computing is really that now. It has been tried before, but it is very real. And from an investment perspective for Amazon, it's a very large part and growing part of our business. In 2003, Amazon.com was a $5 billion retail business. So we had about 8,000 employees, and we ran a lot of storage and a lot of servers to run that e-commerce business. In 2013, we have a division of Amazon, is Amazon Web Services, which is providing this infrastructure. And a notable, pointer to the serious way in which we're investing in this business and the consumption of this business is that we add on a daily basis enough infrastructure per day to run Amazon as it was in 2003. So when we had the servers and storage and networking to run a $5 billion business 10 years ago, we are now adding that on a daily basis to service our customers that are using our platform. So this is a massive investment and something that we're very much investing for the long term. So is cloud computing here to stay? Yes, it is. We're investing heavily in it, and that investment is directly correlated to the consumption and use of cloud-based infrastructure. Back to Gartner again, so they've done a Magic Quadrant on cloud. You'll see a lot of existing companies and new companies, and there's a lot of buzz about cloud, especially in Silicon Valley, right? But from the Gartner Magic Quadrant, you'll see Amazon at the top right, which is a great place to be. We really, that's a direct correlation to our customers telling us what they need and what they need us to build in order for them to use infrastructure as a service. So that's cloud in a nutshell. Amazon, what we offer, back to the data, right? So you're collecting, you'll have decided what type of data you wish to collect. You wish to go to public sources, you wish to generate it yourself, you wish to instrument your own type of data and collect it as you launch new services or new devices. So that data could be linked to certain proprietary things, you could have different sources, there might be your own users or other people's users or other applications that you're looking to track, use cases, locations, but all of this comprises the data. What's interesting though is that even within that data set that you can control, it's very unlikely that you have one schema that's going to structure that data. Let alone if you decide to go get third-party data sources to integrate and to analyze against. There is no one data scheme to rule them all, much as we like it, which means that you need to have infrastructure and or storage that is going to be able to work with multiple different types of data, both today's data, yesterday's data, someone else's data, and then data schemes that you might invent in the future. So for storing data, we have something called Amazon S3, which is a storage platform, simple storage platform. It allows you to store anything as an object, from a 1 kilobyte object to a 5 terabyte object. From the perspective of this storage system, it's an object that you store in storage, you give it back a URL, that URL is secure, and it's globally accessible, but it's not an object agnostic, because we don't really care what you put in there. So you can go up to a single object that will be 5 terabytes in size, or you can go down to less than a kilobyte. It's infinitely scalable, meaning you don't have to worry about how much storage we need to provision in order for you to store stuff. And it's very durable, meaning that we have 11 nines of durability, which means that we're doing the replication and the backup and all the data that you store with us. So you don't have to worry about the preservation of your data. You can just worry about storing it, hopefully, and then doing something with it. In terms of use, this has been a phenomenally well-used product for a number of years. It launched in the bottom right there. It launched in 2006. And it currently today, at least as of this quarter, holds over 2 trillion objects. So we're holding over 2 trillion individual objects in storage. And we're seeing a request rate on average of around a peak request rate of 1.1 million requests per second for that data in that system. So this is a massively scalable, proven, and adopted storage system for storing data. And we can store anything from HIPAA-based healthcare data through to media and movie data, which is governed by the MTA, which is insurable, to customer data, to financial data. You can secure it, you can encrypt it, you can do access to it. But this is very widely adopted, and it really, I think, it's more of a marker for just the maturity of adoption with respect to the platform and the growth that we've seen with it. So once you've stored your data in something like Amazon S3, there's services that you want to use and put around data in order to derive the type of data sets that you then want to do business, to derive business intelligence from. So one of them is something called Hadoop, or MapReduce. So if you think about the classical way of building a Hadoop service yourself internally, you have to get storage, you have to buy servers, you need the data room, you need to order the servers, you need to rack, SAN, and call them, and power them, before you even get to installing your application that's going to do your data analysis. What we're trying to do in terms of accelerating your time to result, and i.e. your time to action, is to remove the need for you to manage the infrastructure, the servers, the storage, and really just focus on the application, which is I want to do. I don't know how many servers I need. I don't know how much data I wish to analyze. I don't know what my time frame might be. So what we do is we allow you to do EMR as an elastic MapReduce, and it's a managed service that we provide. You can analyze structured or unstructured data. You can can run Hadoop, or MapReduce, depending on the different types of software applications that you wish to run. And I don't profess to be an expert on EMR applications, but what I do know is that if we can make it easier for you to use, hopefully you can get more advantage, you can get your results faster, which means, again, you can go back to Jaspersoft and actually analyze those results. So EMR is a managed MapReduce service. Again, you focus on the application, you pair it with storage, and you don't worry about the servers that are required to actually process and produce the results that you need. Our EMR service is 2.5 years old, and we've launched to date cumulatively 5.5 million clusters to do MapReduce and analytics. Again, I think proving that big data analytics is becoming a very key part of business, back-end business, and business intelligence. And that's an advantage. In addition to storing and computing, there is the need to actually put in a structured format your data. And so there we have databases. So again, one of the complexities with databases is that you still need servers and you still need storage even before you get to choose whether I wish to run MySQL or Oracle or SQL Server or even Postgres. What we do is we do the same approach as EMR. We're running that infrastructure for you so that you can just focus on the relational database that you might wish to run. Now, you can run any relational database you wish on AWS. You can download it, install it, license it, and it's yours to run. What we do with this service is that we say, okay, we'll manage the servers for you. You just choose one of these 4 databases, which generally are the most common databases that people are running. There's always nuances, and those ones you're free to run yourself. These ones we run as a managed service, which means that you're not doing the administration of the infrastructure. You're not doing the backups, you're not doing the replications, you're not doing the failovers, you're not doing all of that stuff that you need to do from a database admin perspective, even before you get to the design and architecture. So this supports, as I said, MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, and recently we launched Postgres as a relational database option. Now, if you don't want to do SQL-based databases, we have the same, we call it DynamoDB, which is for non-SQL database structures. So you can do the SQL side, you can do non-SQL side, and again, we're trying to ensure that you can focus on the application as a problem that we're trying to solve, rather than staffing up to run the infrastructure underneath that application. Finally, we have something called Amazon Redshift, and this is now the data warehousing side. So you go from storage through to reducing the content and getting the tables to storing it, and then actually putting it into a container that allows a service like Jaspersoft to actually run analytics against it and give you those visualizations that allow you to actually see the patterns that you're trying to potentially uncover. So Redshift is a relational database, data warehouse, massive parallel, scales highly, again, but you're not worrying about that infrastructure layer. You just load in your data once you've generated it or collected it, and then you can put applications like Jaspersoft around it to actually visualize that content. So that begins to look like this. You have your data center, but you also now have access to all of these services that generally would cost a lot of time and effort to actually put the infrastructure in to then go build the application. You now have access to all of this without any commitment, and you can pay as you go as you use them. So if you want to try these out, you can. If you want to use them for a short period of time or a long period of time, you don't have to worry about actually the lag time it takes to go build the infrastructure to run these applications. You can connect them from your corporate data center, leverage them, leave them running, turn them off. It's really up to you. But these are the sort of the core components of that big portfolio that we have that really focus in on BI and the infrastructure requirements and tools to allow you to start focusing on your core problem, which is running the analytics and visualizing the data. So, who's using this? So we have a lot of customers on our platform, notably here as a summary, but in terms of BI, you can go from Outback Steakhouse to News International, pretty different companies, I think, in terms of running BI. But it's all about understanding what their customers are doing, predicting behavior, understanding supply chain, delivering the right advertising, really promoting or managing the business for growth. You can go from Ticketmaster to Washington Post or Schneider Electric or the Obama campaign, run big analytics in terms of understanding who's going to vote and when. But all of these are very valid examples, and everyone in between. And these companies here, we have the majority of them case studies, if you're ever interested in what these companies have done, on our platform to actually further their business. So what are they doing then? So they're doing things that are crucial to their business, like budgeting and forecasting, like production planning, supply chain, and they're doing it in a way that reduces costs, increases performance, and shortens their time to market, or time to decision making, or time to many things in terms of actually delivering products. When we look at the more consumer-facing side of this, it's similar process, similar infrastructure requirements, but different types of analytics. You might be looking at social interaction analytics, or clickstream analytics, or ad placements, or if you run very large websites, where and how to maximize your content and user interaction across those websites. For example, abandoned shopping carts and things like that. All that becomes very interesting from an e-commerce perspective and understanding what your customers are doing as they interact with your service, whether or not they buy anything, right? So a lot of that intelligence is potentially left untapped because you're not analyzing and trying to improve upon that. So again, it's all about improving performance, improving the ease of use, and lowering the cost. Amazon comes a lot back to cost because we very much want to reduce the cost of this infrastructure for our end users. And no one has ever complained to us about reducing the cost of our products, which is something we do quite aggressively. And so we come back to cost because we think if we can erode the cost, more people get access to this type of infrastructure and hopefully get these type of results that they need to do for their business. And then finally, we've got application analytics. So this is, I sort of covered this a little bit last time, but if you look at the many different applications that you might run, the behavior and the behavior of those applications, the behavior of users with those applications, so this analysis of this user analytics becomes it's again performance, scalability, and cost. So depending on what company you are, you might do all three, you might be focused in one, you might be consultant in one, you might be building specialized services, but they all have this underlying need for infrastructure, storage, database services, and then visualization and BI delivery. So this leads me into my final few slides. So Jaspersoft and AWS. So number one, phenomenal partner for us. They provide a crucial piece in visualizing, as you saw in this demo, just the beautiful graphics that they generate from these containers of data that you're ultimately going to generate and need to analyze. We're both on this ambition to lower costs and to make the ease of use dramatically better for the end user. Right? And visualization is something that we have a capacity to do and look at and understand much better than computers can, but you still have to generate that content in order for you to determine those patterns. In terms of a lower cost perspective, there are sort of fundamental tenets of cloud computing. Number one is that you pay for what you use. Number two is that you don't have to invest capital up front in order to realize the infrastructure to derive the result. The pay-as-you-go is another key piece. So only pay for what you use, meaning once you don't need to use it, you turn it off. Right? Pay-as-you-go is that you literally just pay for what you use. And they sound like the same thing, but really you save a lot of money by ramping up and doing your analytics. You eliminate the capex because you get access to the cost. But once you don't need it anymore, you can turn it off. Right? It's not a depreciating asset sitting in your data center for you to then worry about utilization and depreciation. And then there's no subscription. So you don't have to subscribe. There's no upfront investment. So these are all pointers to lower costs. In terms of ease of use, this is all about the ability to program, the ability to integrate with existing tools, the ability to eliminate the need to do infrastructure administration, and the ability to actually configure and easily manipulate this data in ways that you saw in the demo from a Jaspersoft perspective. So in terms of lowering the barriers to getting access to this, both infrastructure and applications, in addition to all of the services I mentioned, so from an asset perspective, everything is available online. It's all self-service. You just need a computer that's connected to the internet, and you can start using AWS, Redshift, EMR, the databases, everything. In addition to that, though, you can now get enterprise-class software in the same way. You come to something called Amazon Marketplace, and this has already been mentioned, but you can come here within 5 clicks, I would say, on that continue button when you're selecting your software. You can have Jaspersoft running, fully deployed, ready for you to configure, point to the right data, and then start generating results. Now, it's clearly very trivial and easy for me to say that you just do those things, but the deployment of software is a big headache. The deployment of infrastructure is an even bigger headache. So we're trying to, more important too, is that we're reducing that barrier to entry here on the infrastructure side, on sourcing the right applications. There's no phone call needed. You just come here, click go, and you're up and running with your BI tool. And so Jaspersoft has been pretty amazing in getting customer reviews on Marketplace can be pretty harsh. And for Jaspersoft, that's not the case. Right? We've got some great reviews. This will quickly summarize them, but pretty much everyone is saying, this is awesome. I'm very glad that I'm using it. There was a great research that was published about the utility pricing. So for a company to go from selling on-premise software to adopting a cloud model is disruptive from their own business perspective. But to do that and to be able to disrupt the market and be innovative in terms of delivering access to this kind of software is pretty phenomenal. So these are great reviews, great research papers. And the customer usage, I think, then speaks for itself. I think we've seen these numbers, right? We've got over 500 customers in 6 months. It's growing rapidly. There's great quotes from people that are actually being able to suddenly go from how do I start on my journey into BI to, okay, I have my data, I can use Jaspersoft, and off I go. I can focus on the results, focus on what you're trying to analyze, how quickly, what type of results you want to see, and then through the software applications, you can get there extremely fast. So with that, I'm going to finish. That's my final slide. I thank you again for your time. I hope this was useful. I'm going to hand back, I think, to you. All right, and I'll give you